Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome into the newest edition of the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook. I'm your host, Taylor Kennedy, and thank you all for however you may be listening or watching this program. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify, or wherever you get your audio platforms. You can check us out there. Hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button, whatever you want to do. Make sure that we know that you guys are there, and we appreciate the love and support that we've been getting throughout this program. But again, another busy show. Coming up in our next segment, we're going to be joined by the athletic director at West Virginia State University, Mr. Nate Burton. We're going to hit a lot of different topics, including name, image, and likeness, the transfer portal, West Virginia State Athletics in totality, and so much more. So be sure to check in on that interview coming up in the next couple of minutes. In our final segment, I will give you all my picks, and we will go through the stat leaders from Week 10 of the high school football season. And that's so crazy to say that we're already in Week 11 of the high school football season, and it just seems like everything's just kind of just flown by. When we spoke back on Week 1, it just seemed like, okay, we're going to coast through this, we're going to get by, but in the blink of an eye, boom. It's the final week of the regular season, which means Week 1, the first round of the state football playoffs, will be next Friday, which means we are just getting closer and closer and closer to Championship Saturday, or Championship Weekend, I should say, in Charleston at University of Charleston Stadium at Laidley Field. But before I go any further, make sure you follow us on social media at Gaz Mail Sports on Twitter. That's G-A-Z Mail Sports. And follow us on Facebook at HD Media Sports. And this program could not be possible. And I say this every single week, and I mean this wholeheartedly, because both of these companies have been such great people and great people to work with this program. So I want to give them their flowers. And I appreciate Mountain Care Network and 5th Street Brewing for sponsoring with us for this program. And Mountain Care Network was designed to increase accessibility to mental health services and decrease the stigma associated with mental health treatment in West Virginia. Check them out by going to their website, mountaincarenetwork.com. That's mountaincarenetwork.com. And 5th Street Brewing, they are one of the area's top establishments for local beer and great food. With over 12 beers on tap, you're sure to leave satisfied. Check them out by going to their website, 5thstreetbrewing.com, or check them out at their location at 180 Summer Street in Charleston. So, like I said, coming up on our next segment, we're going to be joined by Nate Burton, the West Virginia State University Athletic Director, and we'll do that after this break. This is the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook.
From middle school, I remember having a conversation with my sister and telling her that I wanted to be a counselor.
The passion's always there to help someone who's vulnerable and help someone who needs a little guidance along the way.
I try to find things in common with them. A lot of times for me, it can be anything from not dressing up to just, like I said, meeting them where they're at. Literally, that's our motto. We meet you where you are.
My energy is just, I try to make it feel so welcoming.
I think the big thing with me is it's always what's in the best interest of the client.
I try to be very open-minded.
This is whatever you need, I'm here to help you with.
Welcome back into the next segment of the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook. I'm your host, Taylor Kennedy. Thank you all for joining me, however you may be listening or watching this program. We are pleased to be joined this afternoon, this evening, or however you may be watching this, by the athletic director of the West Virginia State Yellow Jackets, Mr. Nate Burton. Nate, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
My man, your business card is as long as anybody that I know. I mean, I know before we even started this, you started going down the list of everything that you do. You have a hard time saying no.
I do.
Why?
Absolutely. That's a good question. I've never thought of that. I think it's just in my DNA that if there's an opportunity to help or opportunity to grow either the athletic department or myself, I'm all for it.
Do you think along that line it's more of a brand placement thing? I know that's a really weird way of saying it, but you want to do what's best for the university while also continuing to build that public image.
I think it's important for West Virginia State to have a seat at the table. I'm a member of the D2 ADA Board of Directors on the National Committee for Men's Basketball. I chaired the Mountain East Conference Athletic Directors Committee. So just a variety of things, but it's important to have a seat at the table just to know what's going on in Division II, the NCAA, and so on.
Where did this sense of realization for that come from?
it also expanded. The biggest thing for me is I needed to expand my knowledge of what's going on in NCAA and Division II. So I saw those as opportunities for me to make myself better, which in turn can make my coaches, my staff, and our student athletes better.
Fall sports season has obviously been up and running for the last couple of months now. Football, we'll spend some time on that. Football's having a fantastic season, already passed their win total from a year ago. What's excited you about what football's been able to accomplish this year?
Just the adversity. Unfortunately, we lost Jai Leak, a couple of months ago, but just the adversity and the way that they stuck together through everything. They're 6-3 right now. Huge matchup this weekend with Glenville State, and then they have Charleston at the end, so potentially could be an 8-3 season. But just very pleased with how they've handled the whole year, but very impressed by what John and his staff has been able to do.
I know we didn't discuss this prior to this interview, but that whole thing, I know that whole week was really hard for not only you, but everybody involved with the university. But to see not only the athletics side of things, but also the student side of things really respond following something like that, what does that kind of tell you about the culture here at State?
Just the sense of community and family. There were multiple ways that they remembered them. Remember Jai Leak, so they had a candlelight vigil, but then also some moment of silence. But then also our conference as a whole was tremendous. Each team or each school did something to honor Jai Leak, which you don't always see that. But our conference, the Mountain East Conference, is just a close-knit group that works well together. And it was touching, the outpouring support that they lent at us.
From your perspective of what you hear from your athletic director peers within the MEC, what are some things that you all are discussing about what that next step is to try and continue to make this conference even better than what it may be?
I think the big thing for us is getting our brand out there. In my opinion, not biased, we are one of the best conferences in the country, sport by sport, especially if you look at men's basketball and volleyball and some soccer and some successes we've had there. Just top to bottom, we are one of the best Division II conferences in the country. But I think the things that are coming up that we're all trying to figure out are, NIL, transfer portal, the enrollment cliff. All of us are having similar issues, and we're open to sharing how each school is combating those issues.
You mentioned the NIL side of things. How do you think you guys here at West Virginia State University have handled this new world of name, image, and likeness?
We're really just getting into it. You see some schools that are forming collaboratives to handle NIL. No school in our conference right now has a collaborative because it's very expensive to create one if you want to go to an outside partner. But we have about 10 to 15 student athletes on deals, but then also they're able to sell their merchandise through one of the websites that we offer. So they're able to, capitalize on their name, image, and likeness, which I'm all for. But I still think Division II needs to have a little bit more freedom than what you see in Division I, just because we don't have a general manager for NIL in Division II. We don't have those. So we need a little bit more flexibility in regards to what we're able to do with NIL.
I know Division I athletics, as do you know, that it's just a completely different animal with what you have with the P4 conferences, mid-major schools and all that. But from your perspective with Division II, how far along has Division II come over these last couple of years with trying to maintain the pace in regards to what's happening in collegiate athletics?
If something happens in D1, the next year or the year after, it's going to happen in Division II. So just watch whatever happens then. It's what's going to follow suit in Division II. I'm really anxious to see what happens with the settlement. The impact that it has on Division II and the roster sizes in Division I, to see how each school handles that, and then see the trickle-down effect to what Division II, the implications on Division II. We don't know that yet. But once the Division school decides to opt in, and the ones that decides to opt out, then we'll see how things go. But for right now, I think it's a waiting game that probably in the next few months we'll be able to figure it out.
Your thoughts on this whole revenue sharing that's obviously been tossed around in Division I. Does that seem like something that's plausible for a conference like the MEC and plausible for a university like West Virginia State, or is it still too soon to tell?
Still too soon to tell. Like I said, we'll see in the next few months, but I think it's too soon to tell. But I think next year in 2025, we'll be able to see the future of what Division II might look like.
Does that future that you mentioned, does that look clear to you? Is it still kind of foggy? I mean, what's your outlook 2, 3, 5 years from now in Division II sports?
I think it's foggy because the schools that don't have the resources to opt into the settlement, see, are they going to stay Division I? Are they going to come down to Division II? Are they going to come down to Division III? Are they going to look to join another conference? I think there's so many unknowns right now. But once they had set a deadline of whether or not you can opt in, and then after that we can see where we're going to go from there.
Volleyball. I know volleyball, you guys have had 3 different coaches in the last 3 years. But, I mean, again, along that line, the resiliency of the teams have just been able to meet the expectations on an annual basis. What really excites you about the future of what the Yellow Jackets volleyball program has here?
Yeah, Chris Kern really started, I think, where we're at now. But then also Hillary came in her first year, won a conference championship, hosted an MEC tournament, made the NCAA tournament, coach of the year, if I didn't mention that. But then, she left and fortunately went to Pepperdine, which she's happy there, and then hired Avery. And Avery's been tremendous with our student athletes. I'm very excited to see the future of that program. But they're currently first in the South. We have some huge matches coming up with hosting implications. But I just think that program is going to continue to rise in the region and hopefully in the country.
What's the next step for your perspective in regards to continuing to push the envelope for West Virginia State Athletics?
I think it's resources. We are a resource-strapped athletic department, just like multiple schools in our conference and across the country. It's why we really rely on private support. So in order for us to continue to grow, we need private support. Sustainability is a big thing for us. We have to do things that we know we can sustain over time, but then also look for areas of growth. We have to build a track and field complex on our campus. We have to. Been fortunate to receive some great gifts. Kanawha County Commission just gave us $250,000 to really jumpstart those fundraising efforts. But continue to grow. If you look at our campus, it's completely different than what it was 10 years ago, especially from an athletics perspective, but then also success on and off the field. So very proud of what we have accomplished, but still work to do.
You mentioned the track and field side of things, and you mentioned the large sum of money that you guys received. Give us an update. Where is that at now? I mean, I know you mentioned the fundraising side of things, but where are we at with that now?
Yeah, so we've raised about $500,000 to date, and we really need to raise between another $750,000 to another $1.5 million, depending on the surface that we want to use. So we have some large proposals out there, keeping our fingers crossed that before the end of the year, we're able to really capitalize on what the Kanawha County Commission said. We'll give you another $250,000 if we really see those fundraising efforts continue. So we want the best facility. Mondo Track is the best facility or the best surface, and it costs about $2 million to build. We have a great location for it on our campus, but we just really need that private support to help us make that really a reality.
You mentioned how you were a part of the basketball committee in NCAA. Basketball this year, obviously, men's basketball, high expectations, women's basketball right there as well. What do you like about the basketball scene right now at State?
I am really excited about both programs, and it's on the men's side, we're a little bit older with some transfers. On the women's side, we're a little bit younger. I mean, we have 8 new starters on the women's side. We're going to have 3 or 4 new starters on the men's side. I think that's just what you're going to see in Division II, especially is year over year. So many new faces, so much turnover. You try to hold on to that great talent, but unfortunately, when you become Rookie of the Year, All Conference, whatever, they're gone. Yep. Like they're going to jump up to Division I. But Coach Poore and Coach Marshall, first games are this weekend. Very excited about both those programs. I think there'll be a lot of fun to watch. This is the biggest I have seen our men's team. I mean, we're tall. So, but I'm really excited for Earl Lloyd Classic this weekend that we're hosting for them on the men's side. The women's side travels to PA for some matchups, but I'm really excited about both of those programs.
You mentioned the transfer portal side of things. I know in Division I it gets talked almost every single day.
Yep, it does.
But when it comes down to trickling down into Division II, I mean, has Division II handled it better than Division I? I mean, you don't see it as much, but whenever you start seeing these rosters, you're like, well, this is almost a new makeup of what this team was a year ago. How is Division II kind of handled the transfer portal compared to Division I?
We are preparing them for Division I. I hate to say it, but we are the new JUCO. Mm-hmm. And the difference between Division I transfer portal really and Division II transfer portal is the hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars that a starting quarterback at Ohio State is going to jump in the portal, and go to Oregon or whatever it is. And Division II, it's really, I think they're moving up to Division I as opposed to Division I. They're crossing schools or crossing conferences for more NIL money. But that's my own opinion. I think people might feel differently about it. I don't love how you can transfer year after year after. You can have 4 schools in 4 years. I don't love it, but we have to accept it and hope that whenever we have them here, they have a great experience and they want to stay here.
Just a couple of things, just talking about the restrictions and trying to limit that from happening. I mean, what can the NCAA do from that perspective then of trying to limit what players are and aren't allowed to do? Because obviously, with name, image, and likeness, that opened up a whole tidal wave of things, and the transfer portal was the same way. But what restrictions, if anything, could the NCAA restrict players from doing that is still plausible yet allowable?
I think their hands are tied now. I think once they made a decision that you can transfer year after year, their hands are tied. And then if someone does not get the answer that they want, another lawsuit might happen. So I think they kind of, open the gates, and this is just going to be the reality that we have moving forward.
A couple more for you, and with baseball and spring sports, I know we don't want to look too far ahead to the spring sports season, but I know you're a big baseball guy. You like what you guys have been able to do in baseball and softball for that matter. I know track is right around the corner, but what excites you about the spring sports season?
Baseball, again, a lot of new faces. We had a great graduating class that really left an impact, but there's a lot of transfers that we brought in that are going to have an immediate impact. Softball, I think Matty Best is going to have a great year with that program. Track and field, John Possett's done a phenomenal job with that program. In 2 years, we already have 80 student athletes, which is pretty unheard of. So I know John's working day in and day out to better that program. Tennis Andre Cunningham is now over men's and women's tennis. So he's doing a phenomenal job in recruiting and preparing us for the spring. But just across the board, really looking forward to winter first, like you said, but then looking ahead to spring and just seeing how they do.
Your background, I've always poked you with your background being a former college basketball player, former high school standout at Charleston Catholic, as some would say. But when you start to look at what college sports was when you were playing at Washington and Jefferson to now being the athletic director here at State, what are some of the biggest differences? I know we talked about name, image, and likeness and the transfer portal, but really outside of that, I mean, has anything really changed with collegiate athletics?
I was a Division III athlete that my coach told me to not shoot even if everyone was on the ground, including the refs. So and that's not a joke. But I started for 4 years, right? Yeah. So the biggest thing was obviously name, image, and likeness wasn't a thing. During my time, you had stuff like the Reggie Bush stuff happening and Johnny Manziel after that and so on. So now that's the biggest impact. But then also you did not see kids transferring as much as you do now at all. But then if they would quit their sport, they would stay at the institution that they're at. So that's really one of the big differences that I see is just NIL and transfer portal is really the main difference. But then also now just all the money that's involved in college athletics. It was there then, but it's more known, seen, arms race. Mm-hmm. That's how it is now.
You had posted a picture on your social media a few weeks ago of you with the Washington and Jefferson jersey on, playing at the WVU Coliseum. Yeah. I think was it Pittsnoggle in the picture? Yeah. So what was that like? I mean, I know obviously you're a Charleston guy. WVU is always going to be mentioned in this area as well as the whole state, but playing in the Coliseum must have been a really unique experience.
It was, and it was something that I didn't know. It was my freshman year, and whenever they recruited me, I didn't know that was going to happen. But 2 games in, WVU had a team drop them from the schedule. So they called us, which is we were 30 minutes down the street. They paid us a little bit of money to come, and I tell you, we were convinced on that bus. We were going to shock the country. We're going to win, and then we were down by 50. But one of the things, it's just weird though, because one of the things that we loved was we walked into the locker room and there's free gum. You're like, what?
Can't beat that. Yeah.
It's just those little things, but that's something that I'll never forget. A couple buses traveled from Charleston up there to support me and support the team, but it was just an unforgettable experience. I'll never forget though that Gansey was going down for a layup and I tried to block it and I fouled him. My coach called me over and goes, "Don't do it, don't get him hurt." Like, we're not here for that. So, but I scored 2 points and I will always remember that. Yeah.
Who'd you guard that game?
Darius O'Collins.
Oh, okay.
So, and he won that matchup. But they had Hair Bear and Beeline was a coach. They were running that 1-3-1, and then you see it on TV, and then you play it in person, and you're like, they're a lot taller than you thought. But it was a tremendous experience, something I always remember.
Yeah, you talk about incredible experiences. I know you and your daughter recently went to the Taylor Swift concert in Indianapolis. I mean, you're the ultimate girl dad. I mean, if you're buying your daughter Taylor Swift tickets, you got the key to her heart.
I'm a Swiftie. I want to go ahead. I'm a Swiftie. The big thing for them whenever he does those concerts is they trade those friendship bracelets.
Yeah.
I started off with 3 and then my whole arm was covered. It was just an experience that it was everything that you see and you hear about her. She performed for 3.5 hours, 45 songs, nonstop. It was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen.
And the other thing is your son was also a really good cross-country runner for John Adams Middle School. I mean, just to kind of see that, I mean, what was that like? I know you guys ran a little bit together. What's that like for you?
So a week before school started, my son hasn't really been involved in sports in the past, but a week before school started, he was like, I want to run cross-country. And I was like, let's do it. So he ran cross-country, did just meet after meet, improved his times. And he loves it. He took training serious and nutrition serious. And a couple of months ago, he was like, you want to run a 5K? And I did. And I pride myself on being an athlete. I pride myself on, it's one of those father-son things, like he's not going to beat me at anything. He beat me by 15 minutes in the 5K. So, but in my defense, I hadn't ran more than a mile in 15 years. But we rolled out, I think my minutes were like a 38-minute one, and he was 23. But we have a Thanksgiving one coming up here in a couple weeks. I'm not training anymore. I'm not training again. But I was sore for a week later. But it's something that him and I can do together now. And that's what I think I love about my kids is I never played any of the sports that they're involved in. And I've never pushed them to play basketball, baseball, soccer, or anything like that. So sports that I have a background in, I learn from them. And all I care about is they give 100%. That's it.
Well, Nate, I appreciate your time. Go be the ultimate girl dad and the ultimate dad towards your son. And I appreciate you and your time and continue to do what you're doing here at State.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Truly.
Absolutely. Up next, I'll give you guys my picks for the upcoming slate in high school and college football here on the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook.
From middle school, I remember having a conversation with my sister and telling her that I wanted to be a counselor.
The passion's always there to help someone who's vulnerable and help someone who needs a little guidance along the way.
I try to find things in common with them. A lot of times for me, it can be anything from not dressing up to just, like I said, meeting them where they're at. Literally, that's our motto. We meet you where you are.
My energy is just, I try to make it feel so welcoming.
I think the big thing with me is it's always what's in the best interest of the client.
I try to be very open-minded.
This is whatever you need, I'm here to help you with.
Final segment here of the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook. Before we go any further, I got to give a shout out to the player of the week for week 10 of the high school football season, and it goes to Cabell Midland's Marcus Dean. He had 8 carries for 118 yards, which is 14.75 yards per carry in last week's victory, and he also had 3 touchdowns for the night. So congratulations to Marcus Dean from Cabell Midland. And before we go any further as well, let's go through my picks. Again, final week of the regular season in high school football. Again, another week of college football. So let's go through my picks now. I have Martinsburg over Hurricane, which should be an absolute dandy in Putnam County Friday evening. I have Man over Chapmanville, Winfield over Point Pleasant, Williamstown over Scott, George Washington over Woodrow Wilson, with both teams battling for playoff positioning in Class Quad A, Cincinnati over WVU, Marshall over Southern Miss, Ohio State over Purdue, Ole Miss over Georgia, and Clemson over Virginia Tech. So again, those are my picks, and now these are the Week 10 stat leaders under the HD Media umbrella.
We the best, no contest. My clique is the best. We the best, there ain't no no one like cause of you dumb or you crazy. There's no way, G. Me and my clique, we handling biz while you and your clique just act fugazi. You couldn't persuade me to give a damn, it just don't faze me. I got my Xbox, she can't play me. Money in a text box, I get paid. You the best. You the best. No contest. You the best. You the best. No contest. You the best. You the best. There ain't no rest. For the wicked, I'm bad and I'm blessed. Put it to the test. For the rest, there ain't no contest. So what's next? Got me leveling up, I'm obsessed. I bring the fire like I'm possessed. My personnel and my clique is the best. There ain't no contest. There ain't no one like cause of you dumb or you crazy. There's no way, G. Me and my clique, we handling biz while you and your clique just act fugazi. You couldn't persuade me.
Last couple of minutes here on the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook. And again, special shout out to Mountain Care Network and 5th Street Brewing for sponsoring this program. I mentioned them in the beginning. You can check Mountain Care Network out by going to the website, mountaincarenetwork.com, and 5th Street Brewing by going to their website, 5thstreetbrewing.com, and check them out at their location, 180 Summer Street in Charleston. So again, make sure you follow us on Twitter. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Taylor_Kennedy7 for all the latest about what's going on locally. Check us out by going to our Twitter page for the company at Gaz Mail Sports, that's GAZ Mail Sports, and our Facebook page, HD Media Sports. And I'll be sure to check you guys out and see you guys next week. This is the Kanawha Valley Sports Notebook.